He left his pregnant wife crying in the delivery room, but years later he saw her with his biggest rival. The fluorescent lights of Northwestern Memorial Hospital buzzed overhead as another contraction tore through Hannah Carter's body. Her fingers gripped the metal rail of the hospital bed, knuckles white, as a scream escaped her lips, raw and primal. The nurse, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and tired hands, pressed a cool cloth to Hannah's forehead. "You're doing great, honey. Just breathe through it," the nurse whispered, her voice the only comfort in the sterile room. Hannah's eyes darted to the door for the 100th time that hour. Still empty. Still no Michael. "He'll be here," Hannah gasped between breaths, though the words felt hollow even as she spoke them. He promised. He wouldn't miss this. The nurse exchanged a glance with the doctor, a look Hannah caught and wished she hadn't. Pity. They pitied her. Her phone sat on the side table, screen dark despite the 17 unanswered calls. 17 desperate attempts to reach her husband. 17 failures. Another wave of pain crashed over her, and this time Hannah couldn't hold back the sob that came with it. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. They had planned everything together. The hospital bag packed 3 weeks early, the route timed to avoid traffic, the playlist of calming music Michael had curated himself. He had held her face in his hands just yesterday morning, kissed her forehead and promised, "I'll be there every second. You won't do this alone." But here she was. Alone. "Mrs. Carter, you're at 10 centimeters, the doctor announced, snapping on fresh gloves. "It's time to push." Hannah's heart hammered in her chest. "Wait, please, just a few more minutes. He's probably stuck in traffic or his phone died or—" "Hannah." The nurse took her hand, firm but gentle. "Your baby is coming now. We can't wait." The delivery room blurred through Hannah's tears as she bore down, pushing with everything she had. In the movies, this moment was always filled with a husband's encouraging words, his hand to hold, his face the first thing the baby would see beside the mother. But there was only the clinical efficiency of medical staff and the overwhelming loneliness that threatened to swallow Hannah whole. "One more push, Hannah, I can see the head." With a final guttural cry, Hannah pushed, and then, cutting through everything, came the sound she'd been waiting 9 months to hear, a baby's wail. High-pitched, indignant, perfect. "It's a girl," the doctor announced, lifting the squirming, red-faced infant. A healthy baby girl. They placed her on Hannah's chest, and for one suspended moment, the pain, the abandonment, the humiliation, all of it faded. Hannah looked down at her daughter's scrunched face, tiny fists waving, and felt something crack open in her chest. "Hi, baby," she whispered, voice breaking. "I'm your mama. I'm here. I'll always be here." The nurse helped guide the baby to nurse, and Hannah marveled at how something so small could be so fierce, latching on with determined purpose. Her daughter, her little fighter. "Have you chosen a name?" the nurse asked softly. Hannah stroked the soft down of dark hair on her daughter's head. They were supposed to decide together, Michael had insisted. He wanted to be part of every decision. But Michael wasn't here. "Lily," Hannah said, the name coming to her like it had been waiting all along. Lily Rose Carter. As the medical team worked around her, stitching and monitoring, Hannah held Lily close and tried Michael's phone one more time. It rang and rang, and finally, mercifully, someone picked up. "Michael?" Hannah's voice cracked with relief. "Oh God, where are you?" "The baby, she's here. She's perfect. And Hannah?" Michael's voice was rough, distant. Background noise filtered through. Music, laughter, the clink of glasses. "Look, I can't really talk right now. Is everything okay?" Hannah's blood turned to ice. "Is everything—" "Michael, I just gave birth. Our daughter is here. Where are you?" A pause. Too long. In that silence, Hannah heard something that would haunt her. A woman's laugh. Light. Carefree. Intimate. "I'll explain when I get there," Michael said quickly. "I just got caught up with something. A business thing. I'll be there soon, okay?" The line went dead. Hannah stared at the phone in her trembling hand, then down at Lily, who had fallen asleep against her chest, tiny mouth still working in dream suckles. The nurse was watching her again with that same pitiful expression. "Is someone coming to be with you?" she asked gently. Hannah opened her mouth to say yes, to defend her husband, to make excuses. But as she looked at her daughter's peaceful face, something inside her shifted, hardened. "No," Hannah whispered. "No one's coming." The nurse squeezed her shoulder. "Then we'll make sure you're not alone tonight, honey. You've got us." But as the hours crawled by and the hospital grew quiet, Hannah sat in the semi-darkness of her room, holding Lily, and staring at the empty chair beside her bed, the chair where Michael should have been. At 3 a.m., her phone buzzed. Not a call, a text, from her best friend, Jenna. "Hannah, I'm so sorry. I didn't want to tell you like this, but you need to know. Someone saw Michael tonight, at the Peninsula Hotel, with Alicia Morgan. I'm coming to the hospital now." Hannah read the message 3 times before it truly sank in. Alicia Morgan, the 25-year-old marketing associate from Michael's firm. The woman he swore was just a colleague. The woman he had chosen over the birth of his daughter. Hannah looked down at Lily, sleeping soundly despite the fact that her father had abandoned them both on the most important night of their lives. A tear slipped down Hannah's cheek and landed on the hospital blanket. This was the beginning, she realized. The beginning of her daughter's life, and the end of everything she thought she knew about her own. Outside, Chicago's winter wind howled against the hospital windows, and Hannah Carter held her baby closer, whispering promises into the darkness. Promises that she, unlike her husband, would never break. Jenna burst through the hospital room door at 4 in the morning, still wearing her pajama pants under a hastily thrown-on coat. Her eyes were red-rimmed, whether from the early hour or from crying, Hannah couldn't tell. Maybe both. "Oh, Hannah." Jenna rushed to the bedside, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry." Hannah didn't cry. She'd run out of tears somewhere between midnight and dawn. Instead, she adjusted Lily in her arms and met her best friend's eyes with a hollow stare that scared them both. "Tell me everything," Hannah said quietly. Jenna sank into the chair, Michael's chair, and pulled out her phone with shaking hands. "My cousin works at the Peninsula. She sent me these about an hour ago. She thought I should know before it got worse." The photos made Hannah's stomach turn. Michael, in the same shirt he'd worn when he kissed her goodbye yesterday morning, his arm around Alicia Morgan's waist. Alicia, stunning in a red dress that probably cost more than Hannah's hospital bill, laughing up at him. Another photo showed them entering the hotel elevator. The timestamp read 8:47 p.m., exactly when Hannah had been dilated to 7 centimeters, begging the nurses to wait just a little longer for her husband. "There's more," Jenna whispered. "My cousin said they had a reservation. Champagne, roses, the works. He planned it, Hannah. This wasn't some last-minute thing." The words hung in the air like poison. Hannah felt something inside her crystallize, turning from hurt into something harder, colder. "He planned it," she repeated softly, more to herself than to Jenna. While she'd been preparing the hospital bag, Michael had been booking a hotel room. While she'd been timing contractions, he'd been ordering champagne. Lily stirred against her chest, making small mewling sounds. Hannah instinctively began to rock, the motion automatic, maternal. This tiny person depending on her, only her, made everything suddenly, terribly clear. "What are you going to do?" Jenna asked. Before Hannah could answer, the door opened again. This time Michael stumbled in, and the sight of him made Hannah's jaw clench. His hair was disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, and there was a smudge of red lipstick on his collar that he hadn't even bothered to hide. He reeked of expensive perfume, not Hannah's scent, but something floral and cloying. "Hannah, baby, I'm so sorry," he started, but Jenna stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. "Don't you dare," Jenna hissed. "Don't you dare call her baby when you spent last night with your mistress while your wife gave birth alone." Michael's face flushed. "This is between me and my wife. You need to leave." "I'm not going anywhere," Jenna shot back. "It's okay, Jen." Hannah's voice cut through the tension, eerily calm. "Give us a minute." Jenna hesitated, then squeezed Hannah's shoulder and stepped into the hallway, though she kept the door cracked open. Michael approached the bed slowly, his eyes finally landing on Lily. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Wonder, maybe, or shock at what he'd missed. He reached out tentatively. "Don't," Hannah said, pulling Lily closer. "Don't touch her with the same hands that touched Alicia Morgan last night." Michael froze. How did I know?" Hannah's laugh was bitter. "Because while I was pushing our daughter into this world, you were too busy celebrating with her to even answer your phone. 17 calls, Michael. I called you 17 times. I can explain." "Explain what?" "That you planned a romantic evening at the Peninsula while I was in labor. That you chose her over being here for the birth of your child." Hannah's voice remained steady, which somehow made it more devastating. "There's nothing to explain. You made your choice." Michael ran his hands through his hair, a gesture Hannah had once found endearing. Now it just looked desperate. "It's not what you think." Alicia and we were just celebrating closing the Brennan deal. It was business, Hannah. I lost track of time and my phone died and— Stop. Hannah held up her hand. Just stop lying. I saw the photos, the reservation, the champagne and roses. Business meetings don't come with rose petals, Michael. The color drained from his face. Who told you that? Does it matter? Hannah looked down at Lily, who was watching her with unfocused, newborn eyes. What matters is that my daughter will never have the memory of her father being there when she was born. What matters is that everyone in our family, everyone we know, will ask where you were. And what am I supposed to tell them? That you were too busy sleeping with your mistress? I didn't sleep with her, Michael protested weakly. I don't believe you, Hannah said simply. And even if that's true, you still chose to be with her instead of here. That's enough. Michael's shoulders sagged. For a moment, he looked like he might cry, and a small, buried part of Hannah almost felt sorry for him. Almost. What do you want me to do? He asked quietly. Hannah was silent for a long moment, studying the man she'd married 4 years ago, the man who'd promised to love and cherish her, the man who'd vowed to be there through sickness and health for better or worse. She tried to find that man in the rumpled, guilt-stricken figure before her, but he was gone, or maybe he'd never existed at all. I want you to leave, she finally said. Go home, take a shower, wash her perfume off, and then I want you to think very carefully about whether you want to be a father, because if you're going to be in Lily's life, you're all in. No half measures. No choosing between us and whatever else you think is more important. Of course I want to be her father, Michael said, moving closer. Hannah, she's my daughter. I love her. I love you. You don't love me, Hannah said, and the certainty in her voice surprised even her. If you loved me, you would have been here. It's that simple. Michael opened his mouth to argue, but something in Hannah's expression stopped him. The soft, accommodating woman who'd always given him second chances was gone. In her place sat someone harder, someone forged in the crucible of the loneliest night of her life. I'll come back later, he said finally, when you've had time to calm down. I am calm, Hannah replied. That's what should scare you. After Michael left, Jenna slipped back into the room and found Hannah staring out the window at the Chicago skyline, Lily asleep against her shoulder. You okay? Jenna asked softly. No, Hannah admitted, but I will be. I have to be. For her. She kissed Lily's forehead, breathing in that perfect newborn smell that would soon be just a memory. Outside, the sun was rising over Lake Michigan, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. A new day, a new beginning. Hannah had given birth to her daughter alone, but she wouldn't raise her alone. She had Jenna, her parents, her own strength. And right now, that felt like enough. What she didn't have, what she wasn't sure she wanted anymore, was a husband who loved her. The morning nurse came in with breakfast and discharge papers, cheerfully oblivious to the wreckage of Hannah's marriage. How are we doing today, Mama? Ready to take this little angel home? Hannah looked down at Lily, then back out at the city that had always been her home. Somewhere out there, Michael was probably calling Alicia, making excuses, weaving more lies. But that was his problem now. Yes, Hannah said, and meant it. I'm ready. She just wished she felt as certain as she sounded. The apartment felt different when Hannah carried Lily through the door. Smaller somehow. Emptier. The carefully decorated nursery that had taken months to prepare. The soft yellow walls. The mobile with dancing elephants. The rocking chair positioned perfectly by the window. All of it seemed to mock her now. This room was supposed to welcome a baby into a loving home with 2 parents. Instead, it welcomed the evidence of a broken promise. Hannah set Lily's car seat down gently and looked around. Everything was exactly as she'd left it 2 days ago when her water broke. Michael's coffee mug still sat on the kitchen counter, a brown ring staining the bottom. His jacket hung on the back of the dining chair. Evidence of a normal morning in a normal marriage, except none of it had been real. Her phone buzzed. Her mother. Sweetheart, we just landed at O'Hare. We'll be there in an hour. How's our beautiful grandbaby? Hannah closed her eyes. Her parents had been visiting Hannah's brother in Portland when she went into labor. They'd caught the first flight out, but even they had made it to Chicago before Michael made it to the hospital. She's perfect, Mom, Hannah said, her voice catching. She's absolutely perfect. And how are you, honey? You sound tired. Tired. Such an inadequate word for what Hannah felt. Exhausted, devastated, transformed, but not tired. I'm okay. Listen, Mom, there's something I need to tell you when you get here about Michael. The pause on the other end was loaded. Hannah, what happened? Not over the phone, Hannah whispered, watching Lily sleep peacefully, unaware that her world was already fractured. Just get here safe, I need you. We're on our way, baby, hold tight. Hannah spent the next hour in a fog, changing Lily's diaper, attempting to nurse through the pain and awkwardness that no one warns you about, crying silently when Lily finally latched correctly. Every tiny milestone felt enormous and lonely at the same time. The apartment door opened. Michael had a key, of course, and he walked in carrying an enormous bouquet of roses. Not just any roses. The expensive kind from that boutique florist on Michigan Avenue. The gesture was so absurd, so tone-deaf that Hannah almost laughed. Peace offering, Michael said, attempting a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I thought we could talk. My parents will be here in 30 minutes, Hannah said flatly, not moving from the nursing chair where she'd finally gotten Lily to sleep. You should leave before they arrive. I'm not afraid of your parents. You should be. Hannah carefully transferred Lily to the bassinet beside her. Because when I tell them what you did, my father will want to kill you, and my mother will help him hide the body. Michael set the roses on the counter, their beauty obscene in the shabby reality of the moment. Can we please not be dramatic? I made a mistake. I'm here now, aren't I? I want to make this right. You made a mistake? Hannah's voice rose despite her best efforts to stay calm. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. A mistake is being late for dinner. What you did was make a choice. Multiple choices. You chose to plan a romantic evening with another woman. You chose to ignore 17 phone calls from your wife in labor. You chose her over us. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Michael? Explain it to me. Make me understand how a man misses the birth of his child. Michael ran his hands through his hair again. That same desperate gesture. The Brennan deal was huge. $30 million, Hannah. Alicia worked on it with me for 6 months and we finally closed it. We were celebrating. I had a few drinks, lost track of time. My phone died, and I didn't realize how late it was until what? Until you woke up next to her? I didn't sleep with her. Michael's voice echoed in the small apartment and Lily stirred in her bassinet. They both froze, waiting to see if she'd wake. When she settled back into sleep, Michael continued in a harsh whisper. I didn't sleep with her. We shared a room because I was too drunk to drive and she offered to let me crash on the couch, that's it. Hannah stared at him, this stranger wearing her husband's face. Do you even hear yourself? You're telling me that instead of being at the hospital when your daughter was born, you were passed out in a hotel room with your mistress, on her couch, and somehow that's supposed to make me feel better. She's not my mistress. Then what is she? Hannah demanded. Because from where I'm sitting, she's the woman who spent the night with my husband while I gave birth alone. She's the woman you chose over your family. So tell me, Michael, what exactly is she to you? The silence that followed was damning. Michael opened his mouth, closed it, looked away, and in that moment of hesitation, Hannah saw the truth he wouldn't say out loud. Get out, she said quietly. Hannah, get out. Her voice was steel now, forged in the fire of the worst night of her life. Take your roses and your excuses and get out of my home. This is my home too, Michael said, and there was an edge to his voice now, the first hint of anger breaking through the guilt. My name is on the lease. Then I'll leave. Hannah stood up, moving to stand between Michael and the bassinet. I'll pack up Lily and stay with my parents. But you don't get to be here right now. You don't get to play loving father and devoted husband when you were neither of those things when it mattered most. Michael's face darkened. You can't keep me from my daughter. I'm not keeping you from her. I'm keeping you from me. There's a difference. Hannah crossed her arms. You want to see Lily? Fine. We'll figure out a schedule. But you and I? We're done talking until you're ready to tell me the truth. The real truth. Not whatever story you've convinced yourself is easier to live with. A knock at the door interrupted them. 3 sharp raps that Hannah recognized as her father's trademark. Michael paled. They're here, Hannah said. You can leave through the front door and face them, or you can slink out the back like the coward you are. Your choice. For a moment, Michael looked like he might stand his ground. Then another knock came, louder this time, and he grabbed his jacket from the chair. This isn't over, he said. Yes, Hannah replied. It is. Michael left through the back door just as Hannah opened the front one. Her mother took one look at her face and knew. Mothers always know. Oh, baby, she whispered, pulling Hannah into her arms. What did he do? And finally, standing in her mother's embrace while her father peeked into the bassinet at his new granddaughter with tears in his eyes, Hannah let herself break. She told them everything, the unanswered calls, the hotel, Alicia Morgan, the lipstick on his collar, the lies. Her father's face went through several shades of red before settling on a dangerous calm. "Where is he?" "Gone," Hannah said, wiping her eyes. "And I want him to stay gone." Her mother held her tighter. "What do you need, sweetheart? What can we do?" Hannah looked at Lily, sleeping through the chaos of her parents' imploding marriage. So small, so innocent, so completely dependent on Hannah to make the right choices for both of them. "I need a lawyer," Hannah said, "and I need to know that I can do this, that I can raise her on my own if I have to." "You can," her father said firmly, finally tearing his eyes away from his granddaughter to look at his daughter. "You're the strongest person I know, Hannah. You always have been." "I don't feel strong," she admitted. "I feel broken. Broken things can be mended," her mother said softly. "And sometimes they come back stronger than before. You'll see." That night, with her parents asleep in the guest room and Lily fed and changed and sleeping in her bassinet, Hannah sat alone in the dark nursery. She pulled out her phone and opened social media for the first time since giving birth. Michael hadn't posted anything, but Alicia Morgan had. A photo from 2 nights ago, the night of Lily's birth, showed Alicia in that red dress, champagne glass raised, with a caption that made Hannah's blood run cold. "To new beginnings and celebrating success with the best partner. Here's to everything we've built together." The photo had 63 likes, 12 comments, people from Michael's office congratulating them on the Brennan deal, people who had no idea that while they celebrated, Hannah was giving birth alone. Hannah scrolled further and found more. Photos of Michael and Alicia at business dinners over the past 6 months, coffee meetings, late nights at the office, always professional, always plausibly deniable. But now, seeing them together, Hannah saw what she'd been too trusting to see before. The way Alicia looked at Michael, the way he leaned in when she spoke, the way they orbited each other like binary stars. This wasn't new. This hadn't started with one drunken celebration. This had been building for months, maybe longer, right under Hannah's nose while she planned nurseries and picked out baby names and believed in the sanctity of her marriage. She'd been a fool. Hannah closed the app and deleted it from her phone. Then she opened her contacts and found the name she'd been avoiding. Diane Chen, the divorce attorney her colleague had recommended last year when another friend's marriage imploded. Hannah had never imagined she'd need that number. She started typing a message, then stopped. It was 2 a.m. The message could wait until morning, but the decision wouldn't, because somewhere between giving birth alone and watching her husband lie to her face and seeing those photos, Hannah had changed. The woman who'd desperately called Michael 17 times was gone. In her place was someone harder, someone who had to be, for Lily's sake, if not her own. Hannah looked down at her daughter, so peaceful in sleep, and made a silent promise. Lily would never settle for a man who made her feel small. She would never accept excuses for the inexcusable. She would never choose someone who didn't choose her back, because Hannah was going to show her what strength looked like even when it hurt, especially when it hurt. 3 weeks after Lily's birth, Hannah stood in the frozen food aisle of the grocery store at 10 in the morning, wearing sweatpants with spit up on the shoulder and trying to remember if she'd brushed her teeth that day. Lily wailed from the infant seat in the shopping cart, that particular pitch that meant she was hungry again even though Hannah had just nursed her in the parking lot 20 minutes ago. "It's okay, baby, almost done," Hannah murmured, grabbing a frozen lasagna without even looking at the label. She'd stopped cooking real meals. Everything was frozen, microwaved, eaten standing up over the sink while Lily slept in increasingly shorter increments. "Hannah?" She turned to find Melissa Crawford, one of Michael's colleagues from the firm, looking polished and perfect in a cream blazer and heels. Melissa's eyes traveled from Hannah's unwashed hair to her stained sweatpants to the screaming baby, and something like pity flickered across her face. "Hi, Melissa," Hannah said, trying to muster some dignity while Lily's cries escalated. "I heard about everything," Melissa said carefully. "I'm so sorry. If you need anything..." "I'm fine," Hannah lied, already backing away with her cart. "Really, we're fine." But Melissa's sympathetic expression followed her through the checkout line and all the way to the car, where Hannah finally broke down crying while Lily nursed, both of them exhausted and overwhelmed. This was the new normal, pitying looks from acquaintances who knew, whispered conversations that stopped when she entered a room, the constant, crushing exhaustion of single motherhood that no one warned you about. Hannah had imagined maternity leave as a precious bonding time with her baby. Instead, it was a blur of sleepless nights, Endless diaper changes and a loneliness so profound it felt like drowning. Her phone buzzed. Michael, asking to come over. Hannah stared at the text for a long moment before responding. Fine. 6 p.m. Don't be late. He was late. When Michael finally arrived at 6:37, Hannah was walking circles around the apartment with Lily, who had been crying for 40 minutes straight. Nothing worked. Not nursing, not the pacifier, not the white noise machine or the swaddle or the desperate bouncing that was making Hannah's back scream. Sorry, traffic was... Michael started, but stopped when he saw Hannah's face. Take her, Hannah said, thrusting Lily into his arms without preamble. I need 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. She locked herself in the bathroom and sat on the floor, hands pressed over her ears trying to block out the sound of her daughter's cries mixing with Michael's panicked voice. Hannah, what do I do? She won't stop crying. 5 minutes. That's all she'd asked for, but apparently that was too much for Michael to handle alone. Hannah splashed water on her face and went back out. Michael was holding Lily at arm's length, looking terrified, while she screamed herself purple. Give her back, Hannah sighed, and within 30 seconds of being back in Hannah's arms, Lily quieted, hiccuping softly against her mother's shoulder. Michael stared at them like they'd performed magic. How did you... Practice, Hannah said flatly. Something you'd know about if you'd been here. Michael had the grace to look ashamed. I want to help, Hannah. Tell me what to do. You can start by paying child support, Hannah said, settling onto the couch with Lily. The lawyer sent you the paperwork 2 days ago. About that, Michael shifted uncomfortably. The amount she's asking for is really high. I mean, Lily's just a baby. How much does she really need? Hannah stared at him in disbelief. Diapers cost $40 a box. Formula, which I have to supplement with because she's not gaining weight fast enough, is another $50 a week. Child care when I go back to work will be $1,500 a month. Doctor visits, clothes she grows out of every 3 weeks, the rent on this apartment that you don't live in anymore. Should I keep going? I have expenses too, Michael said defensively. The new apartment isn't cheap. New apartment? Hannah's voice went cold. You moved out of Doug's place? Doug was Michael's college roommate who'd been letting Michael crash on his couch since Hannah kicked him out. Or so he'd said. Michael's face flushed. It wasn't working out. I needed my own space. Whose name is on the lease, Michael? Hannah asked, though she already knew the answer. She'd seen it on Facebook because even though she'd deleted the app from her phone, she sometimes tortured herself by checking on her laptop late at night when she couldn't sleep. Alicia Morgan had posted a photo of a modern kitchen with exposed brick and the caption, New chapter. It's not what you think. You moved in with her. It wasn't a question. You moved in with the woman you cheated with while I'm here struggling to afford diapers. I'm not paying child support so you can sit at home doing nothing, Michael snapped, his patience finally breaking. Maybe if you went back to work. I'm on maternity leave for 6 more weeks. Legally mandated, unpaid maternity leave, which you'd know if you'd bothered to ask how we're doing financially. Hannah's voice shook with rage. And even when I do go back, daycare costs almost as much as I make. But sure, tell me more about how hard it is for you in your nice new apartment with your girlfriend. She's not my girlfriend, Michael said automatically, but they both knew he was lying. Get out, Hannah said quietly. I came to see my daughter. You came 37 minutes late, couldn't handle 5 minutes alone with her, and then complained about paying for her basic needs. That's not being a father, Michael. That's checking a box so you can tell yourself you tried. Hannah stood up, careful not to disturb Lily, who had finally fallen asleep. You want to be part of her life? Prove it. Sign the child support agreement. Show up on time. Learn how to change a diaper. Until then, you're just taking up space. After he left, Hannah sat in the darkening apartment and cried silently into Lily's hair. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. She was supposed to be glowing with maternal joy, not drowning in resentment and exhaustion. Lily was supposed to have 2 parents who loved her, not one exhausted mother and one absent father who couldn't even be bothered to show up on time. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Jenna. Coffee tomorrow? I'll come to you. Hannah texted back. Please. The next morning, Jenna arrived with 2 large coffees and a box of donuts from Hannah's favorite bakery. She took one look at Hannah's face and pulled her into a hug. When's the last time you slept? Jenna asked. What's sleep? Hannah tried to laugh, but it came out as a sob. I'm so tired, Jen. I'm so tired and so angry, and I don't know how to do this. You don't have to do it alone, Jenna said firmly. I know you think you do, but you don't. I'm here. Your parents are here. You have people. But I don't have a husband, Hannah whispered. And every time someone sees me, I can see them thinking it. Poor Hannah can't even keep her husband. Couldn't even get him to show up for the birth of his own child. Anyone who thinks that is an idiot, Jenna said fiercely. You didn't lose your husband, Hannah. He lost you. And someday, maybe not today, maybe not for a while, but someday he's going to realize that was the biggest mistake of his life. Hannah wanted to believe that. But right now, sitting in her messy apartment with her sleeping daughter and her cold coffee, it was hard to imagine Michael regretting anything. He had Alicia, young, beautiful, childless Alicia. He had his new apartment and his career and his freedom. And Hannah had Lily. She looked down at her daughter's face, peaceful in sleep, and felt that familiar rush of fierce love mixed with bone-deep exhaustion. Lily deserved better than this. Better than a father who complained about child support and a mother who cried in grocery stores. I need to find a job, Hannah said suddenly. A better job. Something with real money so I'm not dependent on whatever Michael decides to give me. Your maternity leave. I can look while I'm on leave. Update my resume. Network. Hannah sat up straighter, wiping her eyes. I have a marketing degree and 5 years of experience. I'm good at what I do. I just need to remind the world of that. Jenna smiled. There's the Hannah I know. She's been buried under a lot of dirty laundry and self-pity, Hannah admitted. But yeah, she's still here. Somewhere. That afternoon, while Lily napped, Hannah opened her laptop for the first time in weeks. Her LinkedIn profile was outdated, still listing her old job at the nonprofit where she'd worked before Lily was born. She'd planned to take a year off, but that was when she'd had a husband and his income to rely on. Now that future felt like a fairy tale. She updated her profile, uploaded a new photo, a professional headshot from before pregnancy, back when she'd slept more than 3 hours at a stretch. Then she started searching for jobs. Marketing director, communications manager, positions that paid real money, not the nonprofit salary she'd been earning out of passion rather than practicality. One listing caught her eye, a marketing director position at a tech startup. The salary was nearly double what she'd been making. The benefits included on-site childcare. It felt impossible, too good to be true, but Hannah bookmarked it anyway. She'd learned the hard way that impossible things happened all the time, usually bad ones. Maybe it was time for an impossible good thing. Her phone buzzed with a notification from the bank. Michael had finally sent money. Not the full amount the lawyer had requested, but enough to cover rent and groceries for the month. A note accompanied the transfer. This is all I can do right now. I'll try to send more next month. Hannah stared at the message for a long moment. Part of her wanted to send it back, to tell him to keep his charity. But the rational part of her, the part that was learning to survive, knew she couldn't afford pride. She deposited the money and deleted the message. Outside, Chicago was moving into spring. Trees budding, temperatures rising, the city shaking off winter like a bad dream. Inside, Hannah was fighting to do the same. Every day was a battle against exhaustion and despair, but every day she woke up. She fed her daughter. She kept going. It wasn't the life she'd imagined, but it was the life she had, and somehow, she'd find a way to make it enough. 6 months after Lily's birth, Hannah stood in front of her closet mirror in a navy blue blazer she hadn't worn since before her pregnancy. It fit differently now, tighter in some places, looser in others, but it would have to do. Today was her interview at Nexus Technologies, and she'd already rescheduled twice because of Lily's ear infection and then her own bout with the flu. You look beautiful, honey, her mother said from the doorway. Lily balanced on her hip. Very professional. Hannah adjusted her collar for the 3rd time. I look like I haven't slept in 6 months. Because I haven't. You look like a woman who survived hell and came out fighting, her mother corrected. That's what they'll see. Trust me. The interview was at 10 a.m. in a sleek downtown office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago River. Hannah arrived 15 minutes early, her portfolio clutched like a shield, trying not to think about the fact that her breasts were uncomfortably full and she'd need to pump in 2 hours. The marketing director who interviewed her was a woman in her 40s named Patricia Vance, with sharp eyes and a handshake that meant business. Your resume is impressive, Patricia said, settling behind her desk. 5 years at Cornerstone Foundation, led 3 major campaigns that exceeded fundraising goals by an average of 37%. But you've been out of work for 6 months. What have you been doing? Hannah had rehearsed this answer a dozen times, trying to find the balance between honesty and professionalism. I had a baby. I took maternity leave. and I'm ready to return to work now. Most women take at least a year, Patricia observed, not unkindly. I'm not most women, Hannah said, meeting her eyes. I'm a single mother who needs to provide for her daughter, and I'm good at what I do. Better than good. Your company is launching a new platform for small businesses, and I have ideas that could capture that market in ways your current strategy isn't addressing. Patricia raised an eyebrow. You've researched our launch? Of course I have. Hannah pulled out her tablet and opened a presentation she'd worked on during Lily's naps for the past 2 weeks. Your messaging is targeting millennials, but 43% of small business owners are Gen X. They need different language, different platforms, different proof points. I've outlined a dual-track approach that serves both demographics without diluting your brand message. For the next 20 minutes, Hannah forgot about her exhaustion, her failed marriage, her anxiety about Lily crying at daycare. She was in her element, talking strategy and demographics and conversion rates with the confidence of someone who knew their worth. Patricia listened intently, asking sharp questions that Hannah answered without hesitation. When Hannah finished, Patricia leaned back in her chair with something like approval in her expression. I'll be honest with you, Hannah. I had concerns about hiring someone who's been out of the workforce even for maternity leave, but you've just shown me exactly why those concerns were unfounded. She extended her hand. The job is yours if you want it. $65,000 a year, full benefits, and yes, we have on-site childcare. Hannah shook her hand, trying to keep her composure even as relief flooded through her. I want it. When do I start? 2 weeks? That'll give you time to sort out childcare arrangements. Walking out of that building, Hannah felt lighter than she had in months. She called her mother from the parking garage, and they both cried. Happy tears this time. I'm so proud of you, her mother said. Your father will be too. You're really doing this, Hannah. You're building a life. A life. Separate from Michael. Independent. Hers. That evening, Hannah texted Michael about her new job. His response came an hour later. That's great. Does this mean you'll need less child support? Hannah stared at the message in disbelief. Not congratulations. Not pride in her accomplishment. Just a question about whether he could pay less money. She didn't respond. 2 days later, Hannah was at the grocery store again. This time with a real shopping list and Lily happily chewing on her teething ring in the cart. When she saw them, Michael and Alicia, standing in the wine aisle, debating between bottles like a normal couple doing normal couple things. Alicia looked different than in her social media photos. Thinner, maybe. Tired around the eyes. Her hand rested possessively on Michael's arm, but there was something brittle about the gesture. Hannah could have avoided them, could have turned her cart around and finished shopping later. But something in her had changed over these months of solo survival. She wasn't going to run anymore. Michael, she said calmly, pushing her cart toward them. They both turned. Michael's face went pale. Alicia's expression shifted from surprise to something harder. Assessment, maybe. Or competition. Hannah. Hi. I didn't know you shopped here. Michael's eyes darted to Lily, softening slightly. Hey, Lilybug. Lily ignored him, too focused on her teething ring. She doesn't recognize you, Hannah observed. You've only seen her twice in the past month. I've been busy with work. We've both been busy with work. Alicia interjected, her voice sharp. The Thornton merger has been consuming. Hannah looked at Alicia properly for the first time. Up close, she was pretty but ordinary. No magic, no special quality that explained why Michael had chosen her over his family. Just a young woman who'd made a terrible choice and was now living with the consequences. You must be Alicia, Hannah said evenly. I'd say it's nice to meet you, but I think we both know that would be a lie. Alicia's cheeks flushed. Look, I know this is awkward. Awkward? Hannah's laugh was sharp. Awkward is running into your ex at a coffee shop. This is running into the woman my husband was with while I gave birth alone. I'd call that something beyond awkward. Hannah, please. Michael stepped between them, voice low. Can we not do this here? Why not? You did it here. Hannah gestured around the store. You made our private lives public when you chose her over your family. Don't get to demand privacy now. An older woman with a cart full of cat food had stopped to watch, not even pretending to shop. Good. Let them see. Let everyone see what Michael Carter really was. I start my new job in 2 weeks, Hannah continued, her voice steady. $65,000 a year, full benefits. I'm telling you this so you know. I don't need you anymore. I don't need your inconsistent child support or your broken promises or your guilt money. Lily and I will be fine. That's great, Hannah, Michael said, and he sounded genuine. Really, I'm happy for you. No, you're not, Hannah said quietly. You're relieved. Because now you can tell yourself that we're okay, that you didn't really destroy anything, that your choices didn't matter because we landed on our feet anyway. She looked at Alicia. But we both know the truth, don't we? You can't build something real on a foundation of lies. Eventually it all comes crashing down. She pushed her cart past them, Lily babbling happily, oblivious to the tension. Hannah's hands were shaking, but she kept moving, kept her head high, didn't look back. At home that night after Lily was asleep, Hannah allowed herself to feel the aftershocks of that encounter. Seeing them together in daylight, doing mundane couple things, had made it real in a way nothing else had. Michael had moved on, built a new life, left the old one, left her behind like a house he'd outgrown. But so had she. Hannah opened her laptop and finalized the paperwork for Nexus Technologies. She enrolled Lily in the on-site child care. She started planning her first week, mapping out her strategy for the Nexus small business platform. She was building something too, something that was hers alone, that couldn't be taken away by someone else's choices. A week before her start date, Hannah took Lily to the park. It was a beautiful September afternoon, the kind that made Chicago feel like the best city in the world. Lily was sitting up now, grabbing at leaves and grass with chubby fists, laughing at everything. She's adorable, a voice said, and Hannah looked up to find a man standing nearby, tall, maybe late 30s, with kind eyes and an easy smile. How old? 6 months, Hannah said, instinctively moving closer to Lily. The best age, he said. Everything is fascinating to them. My niece is 8 months and she loses her mind over ceiling fans. He extended his hand. I'm Richard. Richard Hale. Hannah shook his hand, noting the firm grip, the genuine warmth. Hannah Carter. Carter, Richard repeated, and something flickered in his expression. Recognition, maybe. You wouldn't happen to be related to Michael Carter, would you? From Kingsley and Associates? Hannah's spine stiffened. I was married to him. We're divorced now. Ah. Richard's expression shifted, became more careful. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It's fine, Hannah said quickly. Everyone knows everyone in this city, right? Especially in business. Richard agreed. He hesitated, then added, For what it's worth, I'm not a fan of your ex-husband's business practices. He cost my company a significant contract through some creative interpretation of the bidding rules. Hannah looked at him with new interest. Let me guess. The Brennan deal? Among others. Richard smiled wryly. But that's ancient history now. Water under the bridge and all that. He checked his watch. I should let you get back to your daughter. It was nice meeting you, Hannah. You too, Hannah said and meant it. She watched him walk away, noted the confident stride, the expensive but understated suit. Richard Hale. The name rang a bell from Michael's complaints about business rivals, but Hannah had never paid much attention to his work drama. Funny how the world worked sometimes. Small cities, smaller circles. Lily grabbed Hannah's face with sticky hands, demanding attention, and Hannah laughed, pulling her daughter close. The future felt uncertain still, but for the first time since that terrible night in the hospital it also felt possible. Like maybe, just maybe, the worst was behind them, and the best was yet to come. Hannah's first 3 months at Nexus Technologies passed in a blur of strategy meetings, campaign launches, and the delicate balance of being a working mother. The on-site childcare was a godsend. She could visit Lily during lunch, nurse her in the quiet lactation room, and actually focus on work knowing her daughter was 2 floors below, safe and cared for. By her 4th month, she'd already restructured their small business outreach, increasing lead conversion by 22%. Patricia called her into her office on a Friday afternoon with a smile that meant good news. The executive team noticed your numbers, Patricia said, sliding a document across her desk. They want to bump your salary to $75,000 and add a performance bonus structure. You've earned it, Hannah. Hannah stared at the offer letter, emotions swelling in her chest. A year ago, she'd been crying in a hospital room, abandoned and terrified. Now she was exceeding expectations, earning real money, building a career that was hers alone. Thank you, she managed. This means more than you know. That evening, she celebrated by taking Lily to their favorite park, the same one where she'd met Richard Hale. She wasn't looking for him, but she'd be lying if she said she didn't feel a small flutter of disappointment when he wasn't there. They'd run into each other once more since that first meeting, at a coffee shop where he'd paid for her latte before she could protest. They'd talked for 15 minutes about books and business while Lily napped in her stroller. The encounter had been brief, friendly, completely appropriate. And yet Hannah found herself thinking about him more than she should, about his easy laugh, his genuine interest when she talked about work, the way he'd looked at Lily with the kind of warmth that suggested he actually liked children, not just tolerated them. She was pushing Lily on the baby swing when her phone rang. Michael's name flashed on the screen. "Hey," she answered, watching Lily squeal with delight at 6 months old, finally able to sit supported in the infant swing. "We need to talk about the child support arrangement," Michael said without preamble. No hello, no asking about Lily. Straight to business. "What about it?" Hannah kept her voice neutral, though her stomach tightened. "You got a raise, right? I saw it on LinkedIn. Congratulations, by the way." The congratulations sounded forced. "Since you're making more now, I think it's fair to adjust what I'm paying." Hannah stopped pushing the swing. "Let me get this straight. You want to pay less money to your daughter because her mother is succeeding at work?" "That's not what I'm saying." "That's exactly what you're saying, Michael. Child support isn't based on what I make. It's based on what Lily needs and what you're capable of contributing. You're a senior partner at your firm. You can afford what the court ordered." "Actually, things are tight right now," Michael said, and there was an edge to his voice. "The apartment costs more than I expected. Alicia's student loans are higher than she told me. We're trying to save for—" He stopped abruptly. "Save for what?" Hannah asked, though part of her didn't want to know. "Nothing. Forget it. Can you just consider reducing it by a few hundred a month? It would really help." Hannah looked at Lily, who was starting to fuss, ready to get out of the swing. Her daughter, her responsibility, her priority. "No," Hannah said simply. "The answer is no. If you're having financial problems, maybe you should reconsider living beyond your means. Lily didn't ask to be born into this situation, and I'm not going to let her suffer because you made poor choices." "This is why we didn't work, Hannah," Michael snapped. "You never understood compromise." "Compromise?" Hannah's laugh was bitter. "I compromised for 4 years while you built your career. I compromised on the apartment you wanted, the vacations you chose, the life you designed. And then you left me alone in a hospital to be with another woman. Don't talk to me about compromise." She ended the call and focused on Lily, who was now reaching for her with urgent little hands. "Mama, mama, mama," Lily babbled, her new favorite sound. "I've got you, baby," Hannah murmured, lifting her out of the swing. "Mama's got you." Meanwhile, across town in a modern apartment that cost nearly $3,000 a month, Michael stared at his phone and resisted the urge to throw it across the room. "Problems?" Alicia asked from the kitchen, where she was opening a bottle of wine. Their second bottle this week, and it was only Wednesday. "Hannah won't reduce the child support," Michael said, dropping onto the couch, "even though she's making good money now." Alicia's jaw tightened. "Of course she won't. She wants to punish you." "Maybe I deserve it," Michael said quietly, surprising himself. "Don't say that." Alicia crossed to him, glass of wine in hand. "You deserve to be happy. We both do. What happened with Hannah it was complicated, but you can't keep letting guilt run your life." Michael looked at Alicia, really looked at her, the wine in her hand at 6 p.m., the tension around her eyes, the way she flinched whenever his phone rang, afraid it might be Hannah. This wasn't the carefree, exciting woman he'd fallen for during late nights at the office. This was someone else, someone who looked at him sometimes with resentment mixed with fear. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "How we started?" Alicia took a long drink of wine. "Do you?" The question hung between them, unanswered, because the truth was complicated. Michael missed the simplicity of his old life sometimes, missed coming home to dinner already made, to a wife who smiled when he walked in the door, missed not feeling like every dollar spent was a negotiation, every late night at work a potential accusation. But he couldn't say that to Alicia, not when she'd left her own apartment, her own life, to build this one with him. "I just wish things were different," he said finally. "Easier." "They will be," Alicia said, but she didn't sound convinced. "Once the divorce is final, once Hannah stops being bitter, once we can just move forward." But the divorce had been final for 4 months, and nothing had gotten easier. Alicia's phone buzzed, and she glanced at it with a grimace. "It's Melissa from work. She wants to know if we're coming to the happy hour tomorrow." Michael's stomach sank. Happy hours had become uncomfortable since everyone at the firm knew about him and Alicia. The whispers had mostly died down, but he still caught looks sometimes. Judgment from the older partners, curiosity from the younger associates. He and Alicia had become the office scandal, the cautionary tale. "Do we have to?" he asked. "If we don't go, people will talk more." Alicia said. We need to show them we're solid, that this is real, not just... She stopped, but Michael knew what she wasn't saying. Not just an affair, not just a mistake. Fine, Michael agreed, though the thought of making small talk while people silently judged him made him want to stay home. We'll go. The next evening at the happy hour, Michael found himself at the bar next to Melissa, who'd always been friendly but professional. She was looking at him now with something like pity. How's Hannah doing? She asked. I ran into her at the store a few months ago. She seemed tired. She's fine, Michael said shortly. She got a new job. She's doing well. That's good, Melissa said carefully. And the baby? Lily, right? She's great, growing fast. Michael took a drink of his beer, trying to ignore the way Melissa's expression had shifted into something he couldn't quite read. You know, Melissa said, her voice low, my sister went through something similar. Her husband left her for a coworker right after their son was born. It was brutal, but she came out stronger, built a whole new life. She paused. The husband, though, he ended up pretty miserable. Turns out relationships built on betrayal don't have solid foundations. Michael set his beer down harder than he'd intended. I didn't betray anyone. Didn't you? Melissa's voice was gentle but firm. Michael, I like you. I do. But everyone knows you were seeing Alicia before you separated from Hannah. And everyone knows you weren't at the hospital when Lily was born. That's not something people forget. She walked away before he could respond, leaving Michael standing alone at the bar, her words echoing in his head. Across the room, Alicia was laughing with a group of associates, but the laugh sounded forced, performative. Michael looked around at his colleagues, some chatting happily, others watching him with barely concealed judgment, and felt profoundly alone despite being surrounded by people. His phone buzzed. A text from his mother. Still haven't met my granddaughter. When can we schedule a visit? Michael had been avoiding that conversation for months. His parents had been furious when they'd learned about the affair, about missing Lily's birth. His father had actually hung up on him. His mother had been more diplomatic but equally disappointed. He typed back, I'll talk to Hannah and figure something out. But even as he sent it, he knew Hannah would probably say his parents were welcome to visit Lily anytime, without him. And she'd be right to say it. You okay? Alicia appeared at his elbow, her face flushed from wine. You look sad. Just tired, Michael lied. Long week. Want to get out of here? She asked, her hand sliding around his waist. We could grab dinner somewhere nice. Just us. Yeah, Michael agreed because what else could he say? Let's go. They left the happy hour early, drove to an Italian restaurant they both liked, ordered wine and pasta. Alicia talked about work, about a client who was being difficult, about maybe taking a trip to Miami in the spring. Michael nodded and made appropriate sounds, but his mind was elsewhere. He was thinking about Lily, who he saw maybe twice a month now, thinking about Hannah, who had somehow become more confident and self-assured in their separation than she'd ever been in their marriage. Thinking about his mother's text and the grandparents' visit, he kept postponing, because he was ashamed. You're not listening, Alicia said, her voice sharp. Sorry, Michael said. I'm here. I'm listening. But they both knew he wasn't. And later that night, lying in bed while Alicia slept beside him, Michael stared at the ceiling and wondered how he'd ended up in a life that felt like wearing someone else's clothes. Nothing fit quite right anymore. His phone glowed in the darkness. He opened Instagram, a habit he'd developed in sleepless moments, and found himself scrolling to Hannah's profile. She didn't post often, but when she did, it was always pictures of Lily. Recent ones showed Lily sitting up on her own, grabbing at a stuffed rabbit. Hannah's caption, 6 months of pure joy, my little fighter. The photo had dozens of likes and comments. Jenna, she looks just like you. Hannah's mother, most beautiful grandbaby in the world, and one that made Michael's chest tighten. Gorgeous girl. Loved seeing you both at the park. R.R. Richard Hale. Michael knew because he'd looked up every person who commented on Hannah's posts. Driven by a jealousy he had no right to feel. Richard Hale, the rival who'd cost Michael the Brennan deal through legitimate business tactics that Michael still resented. Richard Hale, who apparently was seeing Hannah and Lily at parks, commenting on her photos, becoming part of their lives. Michael closed the app and put his phone away, but sleep didn't come. He lay in the darkness beside a woman who wasn't his wife, in an apartment that didn't feel like home, and wondered when exactly his life had started falling apart. and whether it had started falling apart the moment he'd chosen the Peninsula Hotel over the hospital delivery room, or long before that. Lily's first birthday party was a small affair. Just Hannah's parents, Jenna, and a few friends from the Mommy and Me class Hannah had joined. The apartment was decorated with yellow balloons and a homemade banner that said, "1" in glittery letters. Lily sat in her high chair, face covered in chocolate cake, laughing as everyone sang to her. Hannah looked around at the faces of people who'd shown up, really shown up, over the past year and felt her throat tighten with gratitude. They'd made it. She and Lily had survived the hardest year of their lives. Michael had texted that morning, "Sorry, can't make it to the party. Work thing came up. We'll drop off her gift tomorrow." Hannah had expected it, even prepared for it, but it still stung. Not for herself. She was long past caring about Michael's absences. But for Lily, who deserved a father who showed up. "His loss," Jenna said, reading Hannah's expression as she helped clean up wrapping paper. "Seriously, look at this beautiful girl. Look at what you've built here. He's missing everything." "I know," Hannah said, and she meant it. She did know. But knowing didn't stop the small, persistent ache of watching her daughter grow up with only half the parents she deserved. The knock at the door came just as they were serving cake to the adults. Hannah opened it to find Richard Hale standing there with a wrapped present and an apologetic smile. "I hope this isn't inappropriate," he said quickly. "I saw your Instagram post about Lily's birthday and I was in the neighborhood and I thought," he held up the gift. "But if this is weird, I can just leave this and go." "It's not weird," Hannah said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. "Come in, please." She'd run into Richard several more times over the past months. Coffee twice more. The library once. The park again. Each time they'd talked longer, more easily. He'd told her about his tech company, about the contracts Michael had stolen through questionable tactics, about his niece who he clearly adored. Hannah had told him about Nexus, about Lily's milestones, about rebuilding her life from the ground up. They'd exchanged numbers after the last park meeting, but neither had texted first, as if they both knew that crossing from friendly acquaintances to something more required a courage neither was quite ready for. Until now, apparently. "Everyone, this is Richard," Hannah introduced him to the room. "Richard, this is, well, everyone." Jenna's eyes widened slightly, recognition and approval mixing in her expression. Hannah's mother looked intrigued. Richard handled the scrutiny with easy grace, chatting with Hannah's father about the Cubs, while Lily crawled over to investigate this new person. "Hey there, birthday girl," Richard said, crouching down to Lily's level. He opened his gift, a wooden shape-sorting toy that looked handmade and expensive. "My buddy makes these. Each one is unique. I thought she might like it." Lily immediately grabbed the toy and shoved a triangle in her mouth, drooling happily. Richard laughed, and something in Hannah's chest loosened at the sound. After the party wound down and her parents left, Richard stayed to help clean up despite Hannah's protests. "You don't have to do this," she said, watching him stack plates in the dishwasher with the competence of someone who actually knew how to load one properly. "I know," Richard said, "but I want to. Besides, this gives me an excuse to tell you something I've been thinking about for a while now." Hannah's heart kicked up a notch. "What's that?" Richard straightened, meeting her eyes. "I'd like to take you to dinner. An actual dinner. Not a coincidental coffee or a chance meeting at the park. A real intentional date." He paused. "If you're interested. No pressure if you're not." Hannah's first instinct was to say no. She wasn't ready. She had Lily to think about. She was still healing from Michael. All the reasonable, self-protective excuses lined up in her mind like soldiers. But then she looked at Richard. Kind, patient Richard, who'd spent the past hour playing with her daughter and making her father laugh and loading her dishwasher without being asked, and thought, maybe reasonable and self-protective, had done enough heavy lifting for 1 year. "I'd like that," she heard herself say. "I'd like that a lot." Richard's smile was worth every moment of nervousness. "Saturday? I know a place with excellent Italian food and a quiet atmosphere." "Saturday works," Hannah agreed, already mentally running through childcare options. Her mother would watch Lily. She'd love that. After Richard left, Jenna practically pounced. "Oh my God, Hannah, that man is—" "I know," Hannah laughed, feeling lighter than she had in months. Maybe years. "He's the opposite of Michael in every way," Jenna continued. "Did you see how he looked at you? Like you're the most interesting person in the room, and he was so good with Lily." "It's just dinner," Hannah cautioned, but she was smiling. "It's never just dinner," Jenna said sagely. Saturday came faster than Hannah expected. She stood in front of her closet in the same navy blazer she'd worn to her job interview, then changed into a simple black dress she hadn't worn since before her pregnancy. It fit differently now. She had curves where she'd been straight before, softness where she'd been angles. But when she looked in the mirror, she didn't see the exhausted, abandoned woman from a year ago. She saw someone stronger, someone who'd survived and rebuilt and was ready to try again. The restaurant Richard chose was intimate without being overly romantic, a neighborhood Italian place with checkered tablecloths and opera playing softly in the background. He was already there when Hannah arrived, standing to pull out her chair like it was the most natural thing in the world. "You look beautiful," he said simply, and Hannah believed him. They talked through appetizers about work and Chicago and their favorite books, through the main course about Lily and Richard's niece and the particular chaos of loving small children, through dessert about harder things, Hannah's divorce, Richard's own failed engagement 3 years ago, the ways life doesn't turn out like you planned. "I saw you once," Richard admitted over coffee, "before we officially met at the park. You were at that grocery store on Clark Street. You looked exhausted and overwhelmed and like you were about to cry, but you were also so focused on taking care of your daughter. And I remember thinking, that's someone who doesn't quit." Hannah's throat tightened. "That was probably the day I ran into Michael and Alicia." "I saw them too," Richard said quietly. "I know this is probably terrible first date conversation, but I need you to know something. Your ex-husband cost my company millions of dollars through shady business practices. I have every reason to dislike him professionally, but watching how he treated you, how he treats you, that's personal, and it makes me angry in ways that have nothing to do with business." "You barely know me," Hannah said softly. "I know enough," Richard replied. "I know you're brilliant at your job. I asked around after I saw you got hired at Nexus. I know you're an incredible mother. I know you somehow managed to be gracious to people who don't deserve it, and I know that any man who had you and threw it away is an absolute fool." Hannah felt tears prick her eyes. "That's the nicest thing anyone's said to me in a very long time." "Then people haven't been paying attention," Richard said. They talked until the restaurant started closing, until the waitstaff began stacking chairs around them with pointed politeness. Richard walked Hannah to her car, and in the parking lot under the streetlights he took her hand. "I'd really like to do this again," he said. "If you would." "Yes," Hannah said. No hesitation this time. "I would." He kissed her cheek, chaste and respectful, before stepping back. "Text me when you get home safe?" Hannah did, and they texted until midnight. Easy conversation that felt like coming home. Meanwhile, across town, Michael sat in his apartment listening to Alicia cry in the bathroom. They'd been fighting for 2 hours, about money, about the fact that he'd missed Lily's birthday, about the way he still looked at his phone whenever Hannah texted, about everything and nothing. "I can't do this anymore," Alicia had finally said, her voice breaking. "You're never really here, Michael. Even when you're physically here, you're thinking about her, about them." "That's not true," Michael had protested, but they both knew it was. Now he sat alone in the living room of an apartment that cost too much and felt too empty, scrolling through Instagram. Hannah had posted photos from Lily's party. Lily covered in cake, Hannah smiling with her parents, and one that made Michael's stomach drop. Hannah and Richard Hale standing close together while Lily played with what looked like an expensive wooden toy between them. The caption, "Grateful for the people who show up. 1 year down, forever to go." Richard Hale had been at his daughter's first birthday party. Richard Hale, who was commenting on Hannah's posts, who was apparently showing up in ways Michael had failed to do. Michael set his phone down and put his head in his hands. The bathroom door opened, and Alicia emerged with red eyes and running mascara. "I think we need to take a break," she said quietly. "What?" Michael looked up, shocked. "Alicia, no. We just need to work through this." "Work through what, Michael?" "The fact that you regret leaving your wife? The fact that every time you look at me you're comparing me to her? The fact that you're so busy resenting paying child support that you can't even show up for your daughter's birthday?" Alicia's voice cracked. "I thought this was what I wanted. I thought you were what I wanted. But this isn't a relationship. It's a punishment. For both of us." "I love you," Michael said, but the words felt hollow even as he spoke them. "No," Alicia said sadly. "You love the idea of me, the exciting affair, the younger woman, the escape from your boring life. But the reality? This isn't what either of us thought it would be." She went into the bedroom and started packing a bag. Michael watched, feeling like he should stop her, knowing he wouldn't, because she was right. About all of it. Alicia left that night, heading to her friend's apartment downtown, and Michael sat alone in the expensive apartment he could barely afford, surrounded by the wreckage of choices he couldn't undo, and wondered when exactly he'd lost control of his life. His phone buzzed. His mother. "Your father wants to meet Lily. We'll be in Chicago next month. We expect you to arrange something with Hannah. Don't disappoint us again." Michael closed his eyes. Even his parents were asking Hannah for access to Lily, not him, because they knew who the reliable parent was. Everyone knew. He opened his messages to Hannah, typed and deleted 3 different texts before finally sending, "I'm sorry I missed the party. Can I see Lily this week?" Hannah's response came an hour later. "Thursday afternoon. My place. 4 p.m. Don't be late. Short, businesslike. The way you'd talk to an acquaintance, not someone you'd once promised forever to." Michael set his phone aside and looked around his empty apartment. He'd traded a home for this, a family for this, a wife who'd loved him for a woman who'd just walked out. And for what? The question echoed in the silence, unanswered. 18 months after Lily's birth, Hannah stood in the conference room at Nexus Technologies, presenting the quarterly results to the executive team. Her campaign for their small business platform had exceeded projections by 41%, bringing in revenue that had the CFO actually smiling. "Outstanding work, Hannah," the CEO said as the meeting wrapped up. "We're moving you to Senior Marketing Director. 85,000 base plus expanded equity options. Congratulations." Patricia caught her in the hallway afterward, pulling her into a quick hug. "I told them you were special from day one. You've earned every bit of this." Hannah texted Richard from her office. "Got the promotion." His response was immediate. "Knew you would. Celebrating tonight. I'll pick up Lily from daycare and start dinner. You bring the champagne." Hannah smiled at her phone. This easy partnership, this assumption that they were a team, still felt new enough to take her breath away. Richard had moved into her apartment 3 months ago, not because of some grand romantic gesture, but because he was there almost every night anyway, and Lily had started calling him Rick and reaching for him when she was tired. They hadn't rushed anything. Hannah had made that clear from the start. She came with complications, with a daughter, with an ex-husband who still caused occasional problems. Richard had listened to all of it and said simply, "I know. I'm not going anywhere." And he hadn't. When Hannah got home that evening, she found Richard in the kitchen with Lily perched on the counter beside him, helping make pasta. Lily was 2.5 now, all curly dark hair and endless questions, wearing one of Richard's old t-shirts like a dress and covered in flour. "Mama!" Lily shrieked, launching herself into Hannah's arms. "We making pasta. I helped." "I can see that," Hannah laughed, kissing her daughter's flour-dusted cheek. She looked at Richard, who was watching them with that soft expression that still made her heart flip. "Thank you for this. Always," Richard said, and kissed her properly. "Congratulations, Senior Director. You're going to change the world." "I'm just trying to change our bank account," Hannah joked, but she was glowing. They ate dinner together at the small kitchen table, Lily chattering about daycare while Richard and Hannah discussed plans for the weekend. Normal, domestic, perfectly ordinary. And yet to Hannah it felt like a miracle. This peaceful existence, this man who showed up every single day, this daughter who was thriving. After Lily was asleep, Hannah and Richard sat on the couch with glasses of wine, her feet in his lap. "I have something to tell you," Richard said, his thumb tracing circles on her ankle. "I got the Thornton contract, the one Michael's firm was also bidding on." Hannah's eyes widened. "Richard, that's huge." "Congratulations." "It's more than huge," Richard said carefully. "It's the contract that would have saved Kingsley and Associates from some serious financial trouble. Without it," he paused. "Word is they're restructuring, laying people off. Michael might be one of them." Hannah was quiet for a moment, processing. 2 years ago, news of Michael struggling would have devastated her, would have made her want to help somehow, to fix it. Now she felt nothing, maybe a distant pity, like you'd feel for a stranger going through hard times. "I'm sorry he's struggling," Hannah said finally, meaning it. "But I can't feel responsible for choices he made." "You shouldn't," Richard agreed. "And for the record, I won that contract fair and square. Better proposal, better terms, better track record. The way business should work." "I know," Hannah said, squeezing his hand. "You're nothing like him. That's one of the many reasons I love you." The words slipped out before she'd meant to say them. They'd been dancing around that declaration for months, both feeling it, but neither quite brave enough to voice it first. Richard's eyes widened, then softened. "Say that again," he said quietly. "I love you," Hannah repeated, more certain this time. "I love the way you are with Lily. I love that you load the dishwasher correctly. I love that you never make me feel like I'm too much or not enough. I love you, Richard Hale." "I love you too," Richard said, pulling her close. "I've loved you since that day in the park when you looked at me like I might be dangerous and then decided to trust me anyway. I love your strength and your kindness, and the way you never give up. I love all of you, Hannah Carter." They kissed like teenagers, like people who'd discovered something precious and rare, until they heard Lily's voice from her room. "Mama? Rick? I thirsty?" Richard laughed, pulling away. "I'll get her water. You stay here and bask in your promotion." Hannah watched him go, this man who'd walked into her life at a park and somehow become essential. She thought about Michael, probably sitting in his own apartment right now, worried about money and his job and his future. She thought about Alicia, who'd moved back to her hometown in Ohio according to the LinkedIn update Hannah had seen months ago, and she felt grateful. Not for their suffering. She wasn't vindictive, but for the path that suffering had forced her onto. Because without Michael's betrayal, she never would have rebuilt herself, never would have found this job, this confidence, this life, never would have been standing in that park the day Richard walked by. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you leads to the best thing that could happen. She hadn't believed that during those dark early days, but she believed it now. 3 weeks later, Michael showed up for his scheduled Saturday morning visit with Lily. He was thinner than Hannah remembered, with shadows under his eyes and a suit that looked slightly too big. When Richard answered the door, Michael's jaw tightened. "I'm here for Lily," he said stiffly. "Come on in," Richard said easily, stepping aside. "Hannah's just getting her ready." The apartment had changed since Michael had last been inside. Plants on the windowsill, Richard's books on the shelf, family photos on the wall that included Richard's smiling face. Evidence everywhere of a life that had moved forward without him. Lily came running out, but she hesitated when she saw Michael, pressing against Hannah's legs shyly. "Come say hi to Daddy," Hannah encouraged gently. "Hi, Daddy," Lily said dutifully, but didn't move toward him. Michael's face crumpled slightly before he forced a smile. "Hey, Princess," he said, crouching down. "Want to go to the zoo today?" Lily looked up at Hannah, then at Richard. "Rick come too?" "Not today, sweetheart," Richard said kindly. "Today is special time with your daddy, but I'll be here when you get back and we can build that fort we talked about, okay?" "Okay," Lily agreed, finally moving toward Michael with the resignation of a child doing something required rather than desired. Hannah packed Lily's bag, snacks, extra clothes, her favorite stuffed rabbit, and handed it to Michael with a list of instructions. "She's still napping around one, but she'll fight it. Don't give her juice after 3 or she'll be wired all evening. And she needs her allergy medicine at lunch. I know how to take care of my daughter," Michael said, but his voice lacked conviction. They both knew he didn't, not really. He saw Lily twice a month for a few hours. He'd missed every milestone. First steps, first words, potty training. He was a visitor in his daughter's life, not a participant. After they left, Hannah sagged against Richard. "I hate this. Watching her go with him when she doesn't even really know him." "I know," Richard said, holding her. "But you're doing the right thing. She deserves to have a relationship with her father, even if it's not the one she deserves." Michael brought Lily back 3 hours later instead of the agreed-upon 6. "She got cranky," he said, practically shoving the bag at Hannah. "I think she's getting sick." Hannah took Lily, who immediately buried her face in her mother's shoulder. She wasn't sick. She was uncomfortable and confused, and wanted her real home with the people who understood her. "Did you give her the medicine?" Hannah asked. Michael's blank look was answer enough. "What medicine?" "The allergy medicine, that I wrote down, that I told you about." Hannah kept her voice level, though frustration bubbled beneath the surface. "I forgot," Michael admitted. "Look, I'm sorry. I had a lot on my mind. Work has been—" He stopped, seemed to deflate. "I'm getting laid off. End of the month." Hannah felt Richard tense beside her. "I'm sorry to hear that," she said carefully. "What will you do?" "I don't know," Michael said, and he looked so lost that Hannah almost felt sorry for him. "Almost. I have some leads. Maybe something in Milwaukee. I'll figure it out." "Milwaukee?" Hannah's voice sharpened. "Michael, you can't move to Milwaukee. You have a daughter here. A daughter who barely recognizes me." Michael shot back. "A daughter who calls another man by a nickname and asks if he can come on our visits. Maybe it would be better if I wasn't around to confuse her. That's the easy way out." Richard said quietly, speaking for the first time. And it would hurt her, whether you see it or not. You don't get to walk away just because being a parent is hard, Michael. You don't get to tell me how to parent, Michael snapped. You're not her father. No, Richard agreed calmly. But I'm the one who reads her bedtime stories every night. I'm the one who knows she won't eat green beans but loves broccoli if you call them little trees. I'm the one who's here. Where were you? The silence that followed was crushing. Michael looked at Hannah, at Richard, at Lily still hiding against her mother's shoulder and seemed to crumble. I made a mistake, he said quietly. I made so many mistakes, and I don't know how to fix any of them. You can't, Hannah said, not unkindly. You can't fix the past, Michael. You can only decide who you want to be going forward. For Lily's sake, I hope you choose to be present. But if you can't do that, if you're going to keep disappointing her, then maybe Milwaukee is better. For her, not for you. Michael left without another word, walking to his car with his shoulders hunched like a man carrying an unbearable weight. That was hard, Richard said after he'd gone. It had to be said, Hannah replied, kissing Lily's head. I won't let her grow up thinking his absence is her fault. If he chooses to leave, that's on him. That night, after Lily was asleep and they were getting ready for bed, Richard pulled a small velvet box from his nightstand drawer. I was going to wait, he said, opening it to reveal a simple, elegant diamond ring. I had this whole plan, next month at the Botanical Gardens with Lily there to be part of it. But watching you today, seeing how strong you are, how good you are even when it's hard, I don't want to wait anymore. He took her hand. Hannah Carter, you're the strongest, most remarkable woman I've ever met. I love you. I love Lily. I want to build a life with you. A real life. The kind that's built on honesty and trust and showing up every single day. Will you marry me? Hannah looked at the ring, at this man who'd proven over and over that he was nothing like the one who'd broken her heart, at the life they'd already begun building together. Yes, she said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, 1,000 times yes. They kissed in the quiet apartment, Lily sleeping peacefully down the hall, the future stretching out before them bright and certain and real. And across town, Michael sat alone in his apartment, scrolling through old photos of a life he'd destroyed, wondering how he'd ended up so completely alone. 5 years after that terrible night in the hospital, Hannah stood in front of the mirror in her bedroom, a real bedroom now, in a townhouse she and Richard had bought together in Lincoln Park. She adjusted the emerald green dress that hugged her figure, the one Richard had picked out specifically for tonight's Chicago Business Excellence Awards. You look stunning, Richard said from the doorway, already dressed in his tuxedo. At 43, he wore success easily, the gray at his temples, the confidence that came from building something real. Ready? Almost, Hannah said, fastening her earrings. At 34, she barely recognized the exhausted, broken woman she'd been 5 years ago. That woman felt like a stranger now, someone from another lifetime. Lily burst into the room, wearing her flower girl dress from their wedding 2 years ago, now slightly too short but still her favorite. Mama, you're so pretty. Can I come to the fancy party? Not this one, Bug, Hannah laughed, scooping up her daughter. But Grandma's taking you for ice cream and a movie. That's even better, right? Ice cream! Lily cheered, her dark curls bouncing. At 5.5, she was all energy and questions, already reading simple books and asking why the sky was blue. She called Richard Dad now, had for over a year, ever since the adoption papers had been finalized. Michael had signed away his parental rights without protest. He'd moved to Milwaukee for a sales job that hadn't worked out, then to Indianapolis, then back to Chicago in a smaller apartment in a worse neighborhood. He saw Lily maybe twice a year now, awkward visits that grew shorter each time. He'd stopped paying child support 18 months ago. Couldn't afford it, his lawyer claimed. Hannah didn't chase him for it. She and Richard didn't need his money, and Lily didn't need his inconsistency. Hannah's mother arrived to collect Lily, and they headed downtown to the Four Seasons where Chicago's business elite gathered annually to celebrate achievement. Richard's company, Hale Technologies, was nominated for Innovation of the Year. Hannah's campaign work at Nexus had earned her a nomination for Marketing Excellence. Nervous? Richard asked in the car, his hand finding hers. Excited, Hannah corrected. 5 years ago I didn't think I'd survive. Now look at us. Look at you, Richard said, bringing her hand to his lips. You did this, Hannah. You rebuilt yourself from nothing. Not nothing, she said softly. I had Lily. I had people who showed up. I had you. The ballroom was already buzzing when they arrived. 500 people in evening wear, servers circulating with champagne, the who's who of Chicago business. Patricia from Nexus waved them over to their table, where the executive team was already seated. "Hannah, you look incredible," Patricia said, embracing her. "Tonight's your night, I can feel it." As they took their seats, Hannah scanned the room out of habit. Networking instinct she'd developed over 5 years of climbing the corporate ladder. And then she saw him, Michael. He stood near the back of the room in a suit that didn't quite fit, holding a glass of wine and looking profoundly uncomfortable. Beside him stood Alicia Morgan. Hannah's breath caught. She hadn't seen Alicia in person since that encounter in the grocery store years ago. The woman looked diminished. Her dress was nice but not expensive. Her hair was shorter, simpler. The confident, polished woman from those old Facebook photos was gone, replaced by someone who looked tired and uncertain. "You okay?" Richard asked, following her gaze. His jaw tightened when he spotted them. "I didn't know they'd be here." "It's fine," Hannah said, and meant it. Seeing them didn't hurt anymore. It was more like seeing old furniture you'd donated years ago, vaguely familiar but no longer yours, and you didn't want it back. "Michael's working for Brennan Industries now," Patricia said quietly, noticing their attention. "Entry-level business development. Apparently he's trying to rebuild his reputation. Alicia works there too, different department. So they'd gotten back together, or never fully separated. Hannah wasn't sure which and realized she didn't care enough to wonder. The ceremony began with awards for various categories. Hannah watched colleagues accept recognition, applauded genuinely for their achievements. When they announced marketing excellence, Patricia squeezed her hand. "And the winner is Hannah Hale, Nexus Technologies." The room erupted in applause. Hannah stood on shaking legs, Richard's proud smile the last thing she saw before making her way to the stage. She accepted the Crystal Award, stood behind the podium and looked out at 500 faces. And she saw Michael, standing in the back, staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Regret, maybe, or grief. "Thank you," Hannah began, her voice steady. 5 years ago I was at the lowest point of my life. I was a new mother, alone and terrified, wondering how I'd survive. Tonight I'm standing here as senior marketing director of one of Chicago's fastest growing companies, married to an incredible man, raising a beautiful daughter, and holding an award that represents thousands of hours of hard work and determination. She paused, finding Richard in the crowd. He was watching her with that look, the one that said he saw all of her and loved every bit. "I learned something important during those dark times," Hannah continued. "Your circumstances don't define you. The people who hurt you don't get to write your story. You do. You write it with every choice you make to keep going, to be better, to refuse to let pain make you small." She held up the award. "This isn't just mine. It belongs to everyone who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Thank you." The applause was thunderous. Hannah walked off the stage and straight into Richard's arms, where he held her tight and whispered, "I'm so proud of you." An hour later, after Richard's company won Innovation of the Year, and they'd posed for photos and accepted congratulations, Hannah excused herself to the restroom. She was washing her hands when Alicia walked in. They stared at each other in the mirror. Alicia's eyes were red-rimmed, her makeup slightly smudged. "Congratulations," Alicia said quietly. "You deserve that award." "Thank you," Hannah said, unsure what else to say to this woman who'd helped destroy her marriage. "I saw your daughter's pictures on Facebook," Alicia continued. "She's beautiful, she looks happy." "She is," Hannah said simply. Alicia's face crumpled slightly. "I'm sorry. For everything. I know it doesn't matter now. I know it doesn't change anything. But I'm sorry." Hannah studied her, really looked at her, and saw the weight of choices in every line of her face. Alicia was 30 now, no longer the carefree young woman who'd posed in red dresses. Life had caught up with her. Choices had consequences. "Are you happy?" Hannah asked. Alicia's laugh was bitter. "No. Michael and we're together, I guess, but it's not. We make each other miserable. We got back together because neither of us wanted to admit the whole thing was a mistake. But it was. It cost me my reputation, my career trajectory, relationships with family members who couldn't forgive what I did. And for what? For a man who resents me because I'm not you. That's not my problem," Hannah said, not unkindly. "You made your choices, Alicia. You don't get to be absolved just because they didn't turn out the way you hoped." "I know," Alicia whispered. "I know. I just wanted you to know that you won. Completely. You have everything, and we have nothing. This isn't about winning, Hannah said, turning to face her directly. This is about moving forward. I didn't rebuild my life to spite you. I did it for my daughter, for myself. What happened to you and Michael afterward was just consequences. She left Alicia standing there and returned to the ballroom, where Richard was waiting with her coat. Ready to go home? He asked. More than ready, Hannah said. But before they could leave, Michael appeared, blocking their path. Up close, he looked worse. Graying hair, lines around his eyes, the permanent tension of someone carrying regrets. Hannah, he said, can I talk to you just for a minute? Richard tensed, but Hannah touched his arm. It's okay. They stepped aside near the windows overlooking the Chicago skyline. Michael stared out at the lights, struggling to find words. I saw your speech, he finally said. You were amazing up there. Confident, powerful, nothing like the woman I remember. That woman doesn't exist anymore, Hannah said flatly. You made sure of that. I know. Michael's voice cracked. I know I destroyed everything. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For missing Lily's birth, for the affair, for being a terrible father and a worse husband, for all of it. I'm so sorry, Hannah. Hannah looked at this man she'd once loved enough to marry, to build a life with, to create a child with, and she felt nothing. No anger, no pain, no satisfaction at his obvious misery, just complete indifference like looking at a stranger. Your apology doesn't change anything, Hannah said, her voice cool and detached. Not for me, not for Lily. You want absolution? That's your problem, not mine. Michael's face crumpled. I need you to know I regret it. Every day I regret it. And? Hannah raised an eyebrow. What do you want me to do with that information, Michael? Feel sorry for you? Tell you it's okay? It's not okay. But it's also not my responsibility to make you feel better about the choices you made. I lost everything, Michael whispered. You threw everything away, Hannah corrected. There's a difference. You had a wife who loved you, a daughter who needed you, a life that could have been good. And you traded it all for what? A hotel room? A woman who resents you? An entry-level job in your 40s? She shook her head. I don't think about you anymore, Michael. You became irrelevant the moment I realized I didn't need you. She glanced back at Richard, who was watching with patient understanding. I have a good life now. A real partner. A daughter who's thriving. Success I earned myself, and none of it includes you. That's not forgiveness or revenge. It's just reality. You stopped mattering. Michael flinched like she'd slapped him, and Hannah realized that was worse than any anger she could have thrown at him. He wanted her fury, her pain, anything that proved he still had an impact on her life. But he didn't. Goodbye, Michael, Hannah said, her tone final. I hope you figure out how to live with yourself, but either way, it's no longer my concern. She walked back to Richard, who immediately pulled her close. You okay? He asked. Perfect, Hannah said, and meant it. Let's go home to our daughter. They left the Four Seasons together, Michael watching them go with the hollow eyes of a man who'd lost everything that mattered, and only understood it too late. In the car, Richard took her hand. What did he say? That he was sorry, Hannah said. That I deserved to be happy. Do you believe him? I believe he means it now, Hannah said. When it doesn't matter anymore. When the consequences are permanent. She looked at her husband, her real husband, who'd never made her feel small or chosen anyone over her or missed a single important moment. But I don't need his apology. I don't need his regret. I just need this. You, me, Lily, our life. Our life, Richard echoed, bringing her hand to his lips. When they got home, Lily was asleep on the couch with Hannah's mother, chocolate ice cream evidence still on her face. They carried her upstairs together, tucked her into bed with her stuffed rabbit, stood in the doorway watching her sleep. She'll never remember him, Richard said quietly. Michael, she'll never remember he was her biological father. Good, Hannah said. She deserves to grow up knowing only the parent who stayed, the one who chose her every single day. They went to bed in their home, in their life, in the future they'd built from the ashes of Hannah's worst night. And somewhere across the city, Michael returned to a small apartment with a woman who resented him, to a life that felt like punishment, to the permanent consequences of temporary choices. The difference was simple. Hannah had chosen to grow from her pain. Michael had chosen to run from his. And in the end, that made all the difference. 1 year after the award ceremony, Hannah woke to sunlight streaming through the bedroom windows and the sound of Richard making breakfast downstairs. She could hear Lily's laugh, that full-bodied, joyous sound that still made Hannah's heart swell, followed by Richard's deeper chuckle. "Mama," Lily called up the stairs. "Dad made pancakes with chocolate chips. Come quick before I eat them all." Hannah smiled, pulling on her robe. 6.5 years old now, and Lily was all personality. Confident, curious, completely unaware of the darkness that had preceded her birth. She knew Michael as "my birth father," in the clinical way children speak of distant relatives they barely know. He'd moved to Indianapolis permanently 8 months ago, sent birthday cards twice a year, called every few months with awkward conversations that Lily tolerated politely before asking to go back to playing. Hannah didn't encourage the relationship, but she didn't discourage it either. Michael had made his choices. Lily would make hers when she was old enough to understand. Downstairs, Richard had indeed made chocolate chip pancakes in the shape of stars. Lily sat at the kitchen island in her pajamas, already covered in syrup, chattering about the field trip her first-grade class was taking next week. "Morning, beautiful," Richard said, kissing Hannah's temple as she poured coffee. "Sleep well?" "Like the dead," Hannah admitted. "What's the occasion with the fancy breakfast?" "No occasion," Richard said, but his smile suggested otherwise. "Can a man make pancakes for his family on a Saturday morning?" After breakfast, while Lily was absorbed in building an elaborate tower with her blocks, Richard pulled Hannah onto the back deck of their townhouse. The morning was cool, autumn settling over Chicago with its particular golden quality. "I have news," Richard said, his eyes bright with excitement. "Hale Technologies just secured the contract for the Northwestern expansion. It's the biggest deal we've ever landed. 8 figures. "Richard," Hannah threw her arms around him. "That's incredible. You've been working toward this for years." "We've been working toward this," Richard corrected. "Your marketing strategy for our pitch was what sealed it. They specifically mentioned it in the acceptance letter." He pulled out his phone and showed her. "Look, the clarity and vision of your communication strategy developed by the Hale team demonstrates exactly the kind of innovative thinking we need for this project." Hannah read it twice, warmth spreading through her chest. "We make a good team. The best team," Richard agreed, pulling her close. "And I was thinking, with this contract we're finally at a place where we could expand. Financially, I mean, if you wanted to." Hannah pulled back slightly, reading his expression. "Expand how?" "A baby," Richard said softly. "I know Lily is perfect, and if you don't want to, that's completely fine. But I'd love to have a child with you, Hannah, if you're open to it." Hannah's eyes filled with tears, happy ones this time. The idea of going through pregnancy and birth with Richard beside her, of experiencing those moments the way they were meant to be experienced, felt like a kind of healing she hadn't known she needed. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I want that." They kissed on the deck, the Chicago skyline visible in the distance, their daughter playing happily inside, the future stretching out before them full of possibility. Later that afternoon, Hannah took Lily to the park, their park where she'd first met Richard all those years ago. Lily ran ahead to the swings and Hannah pushed her, listening to her daughter's delighted squeals. "Higher, Mama! Higher! Any higher and you'll fly away," Hannah laughed. "Then you'll catch me," Lily said with the absolute certainty of a child who'd never been let down by the people who mattered. Hannah's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but she recognized it immediately. Michael. "Saw on LinkedIn that Richard's company got the Northwestern deal. Congratulations, tell him I said well done." Hannah stared at the message for a long moment. Michael had always been professional on LinkedIn, commenting on her promotions and Richard's successes with the performative enthusiasm of someone trying to prove they were fine with how things had turned out. She never responded to these messages. Didn't block him either. Just let them sit there, unacknowledged, irrelevant. She deleted the message without responding and pocketed her phone. "Mama, watch this," Lily called, and Hannah turned her full attention back to her daughter where it belonged. Across town, in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood that had seen better days, Michael sat on a worn couch and stared at his phone. Message delivered. No response. Again. "Who are you texting?" Alicia asked from the kitchen doorway. She was stirring pasta sauce, jarred, the cheap kind, for their dinner. At 31, Alicia looked older than her years. The brightness that had once attracted Michael was long gone, replaced by a brittle hardness that came from years of regret. "No one," Michael said, setting his phone down. "You were texting her," Alicia said flatly. It wasn't a question. "Hannah, I was congratulating Richard on his deal," Michael corrected. "Professional courtesy." Professional courtesy, Alicia repeated, her laugh bitter. Is that what we're calling it now? You've been stalking their lives online for 6 years, Michael. When are you going to accept that she's moved on? That they're happy that we're the ones who lost? I know we lost, Michael snapped. You don't have to keep reminding me. Someone has to, Alicia shot back. Because you walk around here like a ghost, constantly checking your phone to see if she's responded, looking at pictures of a life you could have had if you hadn't been such an idiot. And meanwhile, I'm here, still trying to make this work even though we both know it's hopeless. The fight that followed was familiar. The same arguments they'd been having for years, just in different apartments in different cities. About money. About Michael's inability to move up at work because he'd burned too many bridges in Chicago's business community. About Alicia's student loans that never seemed to get smaller. About the fact that they stayed together not out of love but out of some twisted sense that they deserved each other's misery. Maybe we should just end this, Michael said finally, exhausted. We make each other miserable, Alicia. This isn't a relationship. It's a punishment. And what would you do if we broke up? Alicia demanded. Go crawling back to Hannah? She doesn't want you, Michael. She made that crystal clear at that awards ceremony. You're nothing to her. Less than nothing. Michael flinched because it was true. Hannah had looked at him that night with complete indifference. Not anger, not hurt, just nothing. Like he was a stranger. A nobody. That had hurt worse than any rage could have. I'm not going anywhere, Alicia said, her voice breaking. Because this is what we built. This is what choosing each other cost us. We lost our reputations, our careers, our dignity. And for what? For this? She gestured around the shabby apartment. So no, Michael. We don't get to walk away. We have to live with it. Michael had no response to that. Because she was right. They'd made their bed. The expensive hotel bed at the Peninsula 5 years ago. And now they had to lie in it. Forever. He went to bed that night while Alicia watched television in the living room, neither of them speaking. He stared at the ceiling, thinking about Lily's first birthday party that he'd missed, the award ceremony where Hannah had shone like a star while he'd watched from the shadows, the adoption papers he'd signed because he couldn't afford the lawyer fees to fight them, and because, deep down, he knew Richard was the better father. Every choice had led here, to this apartment, this life, this permanent state of regret. Meanwhile, Hannah tucked Lily into bed in their beautiful home, reading her favorite story about a brave little girl who saved a kingdom. Mama, Lily said sleepily when the story ended. Am I brave like her? Braver, Hannah said, kissing her forehead. You're the bravest girl I know, and you're the best mama, Lily murmured, already drifting off. And Dad's the best dad. We're lucky. We are, Hannah agreed, her throat tight with emotion. So lucky. She closed Lily's door softly and found Richard waiting in the hallway. He pulled her close and they stood there in the quiet house they'd built together, listening to their daughter breathe peacefully in sleep. What are you thinking about? Richard asked. How different everything could have been, Hannah admitted. If Michael had just shown up that night. If he'd been the man I thought he was. But then you wouldn't have this, Richard said. This life. Me. Us. I know, Hannah said. That's what I'm thinking about. How sometimes the worst thing that happens to you leads to the best thing that could happen. I wouldn't change it now. Not any of it. Because it brought me here. They went to bed in their home, in their life, in the future they'd built together from the ashes of Hannah's worst night. And Hannah didn't think about Michael at all as she fell asleep in Richard's arms. Didn't wonder if he was happy or sad or full of regret. She simply didn't think about him. Because that's what true freedom looked like. Not forgiveness or revenge or satisfaction in his suffering. Just complete, peaceful indifference. The next morning, Hannah woke to Lily jumping on the bed, Richard laughing and trying to catch her, sunlight streaming through windows that looked out over a life she'd built with her own strength and determination. She grabbed Lily and pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her daughter's shampoo, feeling Richard's arm around them both. This was her life now, not the one she'd planned, not the one she'd imagined on her wedding day when she'd promised forever to a man who didn't understand what forever meant. This was better. And somewhere across the city, Michael Carter woke to another day of consequences, another day of living with choices that couldn't be undone, another day of being exactly what he'd made himself, irrelevant to the people who should have mattered most. The difference between them was simple. Hannah had chosen to grow. Michael had chosen to run. And in the end, that made all the difference. 7 years later, the morning light filtered through the curtains of the master bedroom as Hannah felt small hands patting her face. She opened her eyes to find her 3-year-old son, Owen, staring at her with Richard's gray eyes and her own dark hair. "Mama, wake up, Lily says we're making breakfast for you." Hannah smiled, pulling Owen close for a kiss. "Is that so?" "It's Mother's Day," came Lily's voice from the doorway. At 13, she was all long limbs and emerging teenage attitude, but this morning she wore the soft smile she reserved for family moments. "And Dad's burning the French toast, so you might want to supervise." Downstairs, the kitchen was controlled chaos. Richard stood at the stove with an apron that said, "World's Best Dad," a Father's Day gift from Lily years ago, while Owen climbed onto a chair to help mix orange juice. The table was already set with slightly crooked flowers in a vase and handmade cards. "Happy Mother's Day," Richard said, abandoning the French toast to kiss her properly. "We were trying to surprise you with breakfast in bed, but someone got impatient." "That was Owen, not me," Lily said, but she was grinning. They ate breakfast together, Hannah reading the cards that made her eyes misty. Lily's was sophisticated now, with a heartfelt message about gratitude and love. Owen's was covered in crayon scribbles that he explained represented the whole family holding hands. After breakfast, Lily disappeared upstairs to video chat with friends, and Owen settled in front of his favorite cartoon. Richard and Hannah cleaned up together, the comfortable silence of a couple who'd learned to move in sync. "What are you thinking about?" Richard asked, drying the dishes she washed. "Just everything," Hannah said. 13 years ago today, I was pregnant and terrified. I had no idea what was coming. The worst night of my life followed by all of this." She gestured around their home. "Sometimes it still feels surreal. You built something extraordinary," Richard said softly. "From nothing. From worse than nothing." Hannah's phone buzzed on the counter. An email notification. She glanced at it and felt that familiar flicker of distant recognition. From Michael Carter. Subject Mother's Day. She almost deleted it without reading. Almost. But curiosity won and she opened it. "Hannah, I know I have no right to write to you and you probably won't even read this. But on Mother's Day I wanted to say that Lily is lucky to have you as her mother. I see the photos you post sometimes. Her at soccer games, her science fair projects, her growing up into this incredible person. That's all because of you. I won't pretend I've been a good father. I haven't. I was barely a father at all. But I want you to know that even though I failed at almost everything that mattered, watching you succeed has been the one thing that gives me any kind of peace. You proved that my worst moment didn't define you. You defined yourself. I hope you have a beautiful day with your family. You deserve every happiness." Michael Hannah read it twice, then set her phone down. Richard was watching her carefully. "Michael?" he asked. "Mother's Day email," Hannah said. "Saying he's proud of me, essentially. That Lily is lucky to have me." "He's right about that," Richard said. "How do you feel about it?" Hannah considered. 7 years ago, even 3 years ago, an email like this might have stirred something, anger or satisfaction or pain. Now she felt exactly what she'd told Michael at the awards ceremony. "Nothing. I don't feel anything," she said honestly. "It's just words from someone who doesn't matter anymore." She deleted the email and turned back to Richard. "I was thinking we could take the kids to the botanical gardens today. Owen loves the butterfly exhibit, and Lily pretends she's too old for it but secretly still enjoys it." "Perfect," Richard agreed, and just like that, Michael was forgotten again. At the botanical gardens, Hannah watched Owen chase butterflies while Lily took photos on her phone, probably for social media, though Hannah had strict rules about what she could post. Richard walked beside her, their hands linked, comfortable and content. "Mama, look," Owen called, a monarch butterfly landing on his outstretched finger. "It likes me." "Of course it does," Hannah called back. "You're very likable." Lily rolled her eyes but was smiling as she snapped a photo of her little brother. They'd bonded quickly when Owen was born, Lily taking her role as big sister seriously. She was protective and loving, even when she pretended to be annoyed by his endless questions. "You know what I was thinking about earlier?" Hannah said to Richard as they walked. "That night in the hospital, how alone I felt, how certain I was that I'd never be happy again. And now?" Richard asked. "Now I know that sometimes you have to lose everything to find out what you're really made of," Hannah said. "Michael leaving was the worst thing that happened to me, but it was also the thing that forced me to become who I was always supposed to be. Strong," Richard said. "Stronger," Hannah corrected. "I was always strong. I just didn't know it yet." They spent the afternoon as a family, eating ice cream and exploring the gardens, taking silly photos and making memories. Normal, beautiful, perfectly ordinary moments that meant everything. That evening, after the kids were in bed, Hannah and Richard sat on their back deck with glasses of wine, watching the sunset over Chicago. "Do you ever wonder what he's doing?" Richard asked. "Michael, if he's happy or miserable or somewhere in between." "No," Hannah said simply. "I used to think I needed to know, needed to see him suffer or succeed or whatever, but I don't anymore. His life is his life, mine is mine, and mine is exactly what I want it to be." Richard kissed her temple. "I love you, Hannah Hale." "I love you too," Hannah said, leaning into him. "Thank you for showing up, for staying, for being the kind of man who makes pancakes on Mother's Day and adopts daughters who aren't his biologically, and never ever makes me feel like I'm asking for too much." "You could never ask for too much," Richard said. "You deserve everything." "I have everything," Hannah corrected, looking at their home where their children slept safely. "I have everything that matters." Across the city, in an apartment that Michael Carter now lived in alone, Alicia having finally left him 8 months ago, Michael sat on his couch with a beer and his phone. He'd checked 3 times to see if Hannah had responded to his email. She hadn't. He scrolled through her Instagram one more time, looking at photos of the life he'd lost. Hannah and Richard at some charity gala, both dressed to perfection. Lily at her 8th grade graduation, beaming between her mother and Richard. Owen on his first day of preschool, wearing a backpack bigger than he was. A perfect family. A perfect life. Everything Michael had thrown away for one night at the Peninsula Hotel. He set his phone down and stared at the wall of his silent apartment. At 51, he was alone. No wife, no girlfriend, no children who called him dad. Just a mediocre job, a cheap apartment, and the permanent weight of knowing exactly what he'd lost and exactly whose fault it was. His own. Always his own. He'd spent years trying to blame others. Hannah for not understanding, Alicia for being a distraction, his parents for their judgment. But in the quiet moments, the truth was inescapable. He'd made every choice that led here. No one had forced him to betray his wife. No one had forced him to miss his daughter's birth. No one had forced him to sign away his parental rights when things got hard. He'd done it all himself, and now he lived with it. Every single day. Forever. Michael finished his beer and went to bed alone, the silence of his apartment echoing with everything he'd lost. Meanwhile, Hannah Hale fell asleep in her husband's arms, in their home, surrounded by the family they'd built together. She dreamed of butterflies and botanical gardens and her children's laughter. She dreamed of the future, Owen's first day of kindergarten, Lily's high school graduation, maybe another baby someday, growing old with Richard on this very deck. She dreamed of a life well lived, of second chances and hard-won happiness, of becoming someone she was proud to be. And Michael Carter didn't appear in her dreams at all, because that's what freedom truly looked like. Not forgiveness or revenge or even satisfaction, just the pure, peaceful ability to move forward without looking back, to build something beautiful from the ashes of something broken, to choose every single day to be more than what happened to you. Hannah had made that choice 7 years ago in a hospital room, holding her newborn daughter while her husband celebrated with another woman, and she'd kept making that choice every day since. That was the victory, not the awards or the promotions or the beautiful home or the loving husband. The victory was in deciding that one man's betrayal wouldn't define the rest of her life. The victory was in becoming exactly who she was meant to be. The end. Your worth is not determined by those who abandon you. It is determined by who you choose to be afterwards. Hannah could have become bitter, vengeful, petty. Instead, she became stronger, wiser, more fulfilled. Michael had everything and threw it away. Hannah had nothing and built everything. And in the end, the man who publicly humiliated her had to watch, helplessly, as she shone alongside the rival he hated most. That is real justice. Every day. Permanent. Do you believe that true victory lies in defeating the other person? Or in overcoming the version of yourself that believed you needed that other person to be complete? Hannah didn't defeat Michael. Hannah defeated the Hannah who thought she needed Michael. And that is a victory that no one can take away. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please leave a like to help me out and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next stories. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.